It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back, and we welcome to our microphones here in studio in downtown Nashville, the great Attorney General for the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back.
Been a wild week and a half, hasn't it?
It has been very busy.
How much sleep have you gotten in a week and a half?
A little bit here, a little bit there.
When you were a student at Harvard Law School, did you ever think that your name, Skrmetti, would be associated with one of the landmark legal decisions in American legal history?
No. No. It is, and of course the court could issue a really narrow opinion, but the expectation seems to be this will be a pretty significant equal protection case, whichever way it goes. And I was at an AG event a couple days ago with a lot of people I knew, a lot of old friends. We, from when I was the chief deputy AG, people I've known for years. And it was the Supreme Court review, and they were talking first and foremost about the Skrmetti case. And every time they said it, it was hard not to just giggle a little bit. It's a serious and important case, but it seems insane that my name is slapped on that, and that whatever happens, that's how people are going to know it.
And tell our listeners why your name is slapped on the case, and then briefly describe the case, and we'll talk a little bit about your round of media interviews.
Sure. So a few years ago, there was a lot of coverage driven largely by Matt Walsh. I think he's the one who broke the story about Vanderbilt's gender clinic. And the General Assembly was very concerned about what it learned. William Lamberth, Jack Johnson sponsored bills in each house, SB1 in the Senate by Johnson, HB1 in the House by Lamberth, to prohibit the use of surgery or puberty blockers or hormone treatments for transition purposes for kids in Tennessee. They passed the law. We got sued pretty quickly by the ACLU, Lambda Legal. They were supported by a big New York law firm. Very, very heavy weight on that side. And then the U.S. Department of Justice jumped in to further sue us. And because I'm the Attorney General of Tennessee, they put my name first, arguing that I had some enforcement authority that they wanted to stop.
So that's why the case is U.S. v. Skrmetti.
Correct. And there were private plaintiffs that started it, but it was the United States that successfully got the Supreme Court to take the case. Mm-hmm. And so it was LW versus Skrmetti in the lower courts. But because only the government's petition for certiorari, the request for the court to hear the case, was granted, then the case at the Supreme Court is U.S. versus Skrmetti.
I want a little bit of a curveball here as we start off the interview.
Uh-oh.
Well, there's going to be a new Attorney General in the United States, a new Department of Justice. January 20th, the afternoon thereof. Pam Bondi will be easily confirmed, I think. What if she says, we want to withdraw from this case? Could she do that, and what would happen?
She can do that. Because the ACLU fully briefed, fully argued the case, had a chance to put out every argument they want for the court to hear, there's precedent that the court can allow the case to continue, can decide it. There are still parties in conflict there. So obviously the Supreme Court can do what it wants. I'm sure it could find a way to not do that if it chose to, but there is precedent that allows them very easily to continue with the case and to issue an opinion.
Yeah, I hate putting on my Nostradamus hat and legal issues in front of the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, but it wouldn't surprise me.
It may be likely, given some of the statements on the campaign trail.
It wouldn't surprise me if the Department of Justice withdrew, but the case continued, and we'll have a decision about June and July.
I think so. I think this will take a while. They seem to recognize there are a lot of potential ramifications here. We got a lot of questions. The other side got more questions, but it was really clear that the justices were thinking particularly hard about how this might play out.
You had a terrific Solicitor General, Matthew Rice, who, by the way, just for all of our listeners, played baseball. He's at Western Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Was so good, he played in the minor leagues for the Tampa Ray Major League Baseball franchise, and he was a catcher. He had 295 over 2 years. How about that? That's
very
pretty good.
respectable. Yeah.
Very respectable. And but he made a decision. He said, I think I might be a little better using my brain and not my brain and my bat. So he went to University of California, Berkeley Law School, finished first in his class. Yikes. And has just a stellar career. And you hired him.
He is a rock star. His performance, I knew he was going to do a good job. I mean, he's great.
Told me sitting in that chair, you told me he would do a great job.
He did a better job than I thought he would do, though. I mean, it was really good. It was the only criticism I've seen is from people who are so obviously locked in on the other side that they're just offended that anyone would disagree with them. Everybody remotely objective recognizes he hit it out of the park.
Well, the other thing too is I've heard a lot of people on the other side don't want to talk about the case because he did such a good job on it.
He did a really good job. I mean, everyone can go listen to it. He got some tough questions, and it's not just tough questions. It's tough questions from a Supreme Court justice, which is a former law school student. It's particularly intimidating. You never want a judge yelling at you, but when it's in the Supreme Court, that's tough.
But he handled it with such aplomb, and he took it in stride, and he didn't wither at all, but he was very polite. He very, very lawyerly in it, and I was very impressed with. I mean, he would get to hit one of these tough questions. It would be a nanosecond of waiting, and then he'd say, "Well," and he would just deliver a really excellent response. So, I think that you're absolutely right. He is a superstar. So, what I was so impressed with is the Team Tennessee approach here that was taken here about this case, and you were leading the team. But it was you, Speaker or the Leader Lamberth from the House and Leader Johnson from the Senate were up there. I think they were in the courtroom itself, right? So
we got tickets for them. The governor was up there as well.
Oh, that's
he came into the court.
Yeah.
We had probably a dozen legislators come up. There were big rallies out in front of the court on both sides, and we had a significant attendance. I got a lot of encouragement from the federal delegation. The Secretary of State came up. So there was a really good crowd of Tennesseans up there cheering us on, and I think everybody really appreciated that.
You know what it said to the country? It said, common sense is back and Tennessee is leading the way. That's what it seemed like. And you were out and you did like a media tour. I was just saying, you're now in the last 100 yards of your victory lap here with us for an hour. It's not quite a victory yet.
The victory is getting through it. Well,
But so tell us about that, your strategy in terms of your media strategy was, I thought, spectacular because you were everywhere. What was that like? And what are some of the most memorable interviews that you conducted?
So, and the reason we did that is because there's an advocacy element to just making sure that not only is your side provided in court, but that it's part of the conversation more broadly. And if we left a vacuum there, then there's a really strong emotional story from the other side, and you don't want that to run unchecked because emotions are valid, people's feelings are valid, but medical evidence and the law are also very valid and really important to the outcome of this case. So our plan was to get around as much as possible and just make sure that we were putting out the underlying facts, making sure people understood that our side wasn't, we hate kids with gender dysphoria. Our position was, this is a reasonable law in light of the evidence, and the state has the constitutional authority to do this. So I, wanted to be very measured about it, and we went to some friendly outlets, but we went to some hostile outlets as well.
When we come back, we'll talk about some of those hostile outlets. And I have to say, you turned them around very quickly. I thought it was a very impressive display. Well, the more we get back, he's Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. Back after this.
folks, John Fredericks here for Freedom Alliance. Veterans are still struggling with the wounds of war. They came home with injuries that changed them forever. The flag-burning troublemakers in our streets remind me how fortunate we are to have patriots who served and fought, sacrificed, and never complained. We need to support them through organizations like the Freedom Alliance. It's Military Appreciation Month and time to support those who serve. Freedom Alliance is caring for combat veterans and military families. Combat veterans fought in the worst, most dangerous places on earth. Freedom Alliance takes them to nature's most relaxing locations so they can heal. Freedom Alliance gives injured troops mortgage-free homes, new cars, and all-terrain wheelchairs. For wounded vets, there's nothing like the stability of your own home, the reinsurance of a reliable vehicle, or the independence of a wheelchair that navigates snow, ice, beach, pasture, or most any terrain. Let's fight for those who fought for us. Go to freedomalliance.org/Godzilla and make a monthly gift that will improve the life of a military hero. That's freedomalliance.org/Godzilla. Make a contribution today.
If you're like me, most moms find it difficult to prioritize self-care. Hi, it's Colleen, Program Director at the John Fredericks Media Network. With the demands of programming 13 radio stations, it's easy to forget about the things I should do for myself daily. And that's why I started with our company's Women's Challenge with Native Path Collagen Peptides. It's affordable and convenient care in just one scoop a day. There are so many incredible health benefits like bone and joint support, metabolism booster, and hair, skin, and nail improvement. I like to take a moment each day to prioritize myself and indulge in the health-boosting benefits of Native Path Collagen Peptides. I love mixing it up with all the different smoothie recipes, too. Learn more about Native Path Collagen Peptides and read 7 important reasons why you should be taking collagen peptides at getnativepath.com/Godzilla. Prioritize your self-care with Native Path Collagen Peptides. Try it risk-free for as low as $21 today and get free shipping at getnativepath.com/Godzilla.
Target.com. Target.com is an online e-commerce tire retailer. We are here to serve the American public with the best possible customer service, the best pricing, and we make it extremely easy. We have many name brands and a lot of low-cost tires. The price is right, and it's easy. You go online to Target.com, Tireget.com, Target.com. You go there, you put your zip code in, all the inventory displays right in front of you. You can call in for help if you want to. We'll help you get the tire that you need. But we will take the tires you buy and at no extra charge deliver them to the dealer right by your house where they will be installed at the market price. It's easy. The best price, the best service. Great people to deal with. Thank you for going to Target.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. We're in studio here in downtown Nashville, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee State Capitol, with the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti. So, a week ago Wednesday, the oral arguments were held at the Supreme Court, about 2.5 hours. It was pretty intense. You were there in person. And we've talked a little bit about the case itself, but I'm very impressed with the communications plan and how you've been able to get your message out. You went into the belly of the beast, and you went and you talked to the regime media talking heads who obviously were, antagonistic to the Tennessee point of view here. One of them, I thought, is Jake Tapper, who is at CNN. Tell us about that interview. What were you thinking about it before? And for those of you were in studio with him, right?
Yeah.
It's the Washington studio of CNN. Is it is it right across from the Capitol near the C-SPAN studio, or
I think it was a little further away.
Okay.
We were zipping around the city, so I really kind of got disoriented.
You
It was
just
just
went
like a
into
run
one
from
studio?
studio to studio. It was physically intense just to get from place to place and do these things.
So let's talk about that. Was this on Wednesday or on Thursday?
That one was on Wednesday.
And so you've spent all day. You're out. You were outside the Supreme Court before the argument began, right? I think, weren't you? Or was
But we got in. We went straight into the court.
You went right into the
I had
court.
to do the swearing in procedure.
Got it.
and they have a little lawyer's lounge in there. So I didn't do any media that morning.
But that afternoon, so did you have like a team with you in an SUV or driving around with a police escort? Or
I did. Amy Wilhite, my comms director, was there.
By the way, we have the best state attorney general in the country, and you have the best comms director in the country, Amy Wilhite. Fantastic.
Yeah, she did a great job. We had a quick sandwich, and then we started hitting the different outlets. So CNN had run some stories involving kids dealing with gender dysphoria, very, very sympathetic stories. Jake Tapper had Chase Strangio, the ACLU attorney, on, I think the day before.
I saw that interview. And, my reaction was, and Chase Strangio, this is me speaking, not you, was born female, transitioned to male, my feeling on that is that, I thought it was odd that somebody who's going to be making a case before the Supreme Court the following day would be out doing PR, and I thought that he was not that particularly effective because it struck me as an advocate. I thought it was more of a PR thing to have the transgender arguing. That's me, not you. But let's just go ahead to when you were on there on CNN.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had not. It was not all softballs or anything to the other side, but he had, and his network had a lot of very sympathetic portrayals. Mm-hmm. And so I went in thinking, I'm going to get gut like a fish. I mean,
so let's talk about this for a moment. Oh. You arrive there. As you arrive, you get out of your SUV. Just walk us through the process. What happens?
So you go to the desk, and they send somebody down from the studio. They bring you up. There's a green room there.
There literally is a green room.
Yep, there's a green room. There were other people who were in there, and we got there a little bit early, so
do they do the makeup and things for you or not?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and so they call it a green room. It is green. It's where you wait till you come on.
Yeah, they had decent coffee, Cokes,
good,
all that sort of thing. It's a nice green room, and they were super friendly. But you go up in the green room and you wait, and you can watch the show as it's happening, and they're covering different stuff. You see other guests going on and coming off, and then I was up, and we went in, had a minute or so to make small talk and get me situated in there. And we were sitting at a table
like this,
basically like this. And Jake Tapper is a journalist of towering reputation in terms of, he's been involved with presidents. Mm-hmm. He has been in the business for a long time. I'm still relatively new to this, and I was pretty nervous. I figured, given the generally positive portrayal of the other side, that I'd get some hard questions. And he came out with some really hard questions.
What was the hard question that he asked?
I mean, the first one was, if you're looking at the parents of a kid who's transgender and they're worried that their kid is going to commit suicide if they can't get these drugs, what do you say to them? And it's a pretty hard question.
That's
it's a tough question. But that's a question that I think a lot of people are worried about.
But I think your answer, the way you framed it, was very sympathetic to that situation. But you gave a very good answer.
Yeah, I mean, parents do care. Like, none of us want kids to kill themselves.
I think you used that very phrase.
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing about the argument, I think it was really important, separate from whatever legal outcome there is the ACLU conceded that the evidence does not show that if you don't give kids these life-altering procedures, that they kill themselves more.
Was very interesting in the argument that their attorney, Chase Strangio, that question was posed by Judge Alito. And he cited the study that said there's no, it doesn't increase suicide. And then I saw Strangio answer it by saying, well, if you really look at it, Your Honor, it doesn't change the rate of suicide, but it does change suicidality. And so I hear that, and a little red flag goes up. What are you talking about, suicidality? Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough question from the court, because the answer hurts a lot. For so long, the narrative was, if you don't let your kid do this, you're going to have a dead kid.
Mm-hmm.
And that line was used to bully a lot of parents.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot of evidence. All this stuff is so new. So when people were confronted with this, I mean, the last thing you want is for your kid to kill themselves. That's horrible. So a lot of parents, I think, reluctantly went along with this whole regime. And that cuts to the heart of it, right? The evidence just isn't there. And there are people out there who knock me for talking about evidence. They say, well, it's just intuitively clear that this is an evil thing to do to kids. But the response to that is, if we just talk to the people we agree with, we're not going to be able to change things.
See, this was a key element in terms of, I think, your public communications after the case was very, very helpful. Because when you get a guy like Jake Tapper who asked that question, and it was a good question, but the way you answered it by citing the evidence, and you were not, I mean, you were very measured. You weren't histrionic. And a guy like Jake Tapper, if you have sort of like the histrionic response from somebody who's a Republican, immediately his defenses go up and he's going to say, well, I'm going to get him on something. But you kind of disarmed him with that approach.
Yeah, and he had a tough follow-up question too, which was something along the lines of, I mean, you're doing this because of your faith, right? And I do a lot of things because of my faith, but that's not legally binding on other people. But if you look at the coalition here, I mean, I don't know what percentage, but a large number of the protesters on our side in front of the Supreme Court were from groups like the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual Alliance and Gays Against Groomers and groups like that who, you know, are looking at things from a different perspective than a lot of the Tennessee General Assembly, but they have reached the same conclusion and they're really concerned about it. And then you have these doctor groups that are just mortified that this national consensus has come out of nowhere, and the evidence is all cutting in the other direction. And so it was actually a great question to be able to highlight that this is not just an ideological thing. It's not just a political thing. This was a bipartisan bill in the Tennessee General Assembly. You know, this is people who are looking at the evidence versus people who are following a consensus.
But by the middle of that interview, I think you had a sense that he was hearing your argument.
Yeah, I mean, it's been such an emotional issue, and you know, we have an ongoing culture war, and I think a lot of people have chosen their sides, and they think, well, if it's on this side, then I'm for it. If it's on this side, I'm against it. And there are a lot of those issues out there. I fight a lot of them on behalf of Tennessee all the time, but this is one where, and this is why Europe is so important, anybody looking at the evidence is discovering that we have gone way off track. You know, the UK, Sweden, all these countries which do not share Tennessee values most of the time, were all on board with these procedures, and then they've started pulling it back. England just further restricted
I just saw that
puberty blockers.
They just announced that they were banning puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and I think surgery
for under 18s.
For under 18s indefinitely.
Yeah. Now, the only difference is they do have a very narrow experimental clinical track that we don't. But they're, you know, that the purpose of that is to make clear to everybody, this is bad stuff. Like you don't have any guaranteed benefits here. And the biggest problem with this is the explosion, right? Like there was always a very small number of people with gender dysphoria, but we've seen it massively multiply. And there's a lot of concern out there that kids who don't have gender dysphoria, but either have other mental illnesses or otherwise susceptible to the pressures, are jumping on this train and altering their bodies in ways they can never undo for reasons that are just not remotely valid. And that's not to say that these procedures are appropriate for kids with gender dysphoria, but even the people who support them, if confronted with the fact that these numbers have gone up, have a tough time answering.
And we're going to talk about another recent case in the news, like just came into the news like just the day after the oral argument in U.S. v. Scarametti, a case out in California, which I think illustrates that point. We'll be back with Attorney General of Tennessee, Jonathan Scarametti, in just a moment. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. I want to say a few words about our friends at the Nashville Pizza Company, 2176 Hillsborough Road. The Nashville Pizza Company in Franklin reminds us that the current economic times have been tough on many families in our area, and many are finding it hard to make ends meet. Your donations of clothing or canned goods can make a difference for a family in need. During this holiday season, give from the heart so others can have a new start. That's courtesy of our friends at Nashville Pizza Company, 2176 Hillsborough Road in Franklin. They are always working to keep our community moving in a positive direction.
My fellow Americans, my good friends, I've known them for a long time, at D.T. McCall & Sons have the deal of a lifetime for you, and nobody knows deals like I do. That much I can tell you. Nobody knows deals like I do. The lumber yards, they can hit you with hidden charges for up to $200 extra. They'll charge you for cords and hoses and haul-offs. Your money goes all over the place and out of the state, and most importantly, out of your pockets. How do they get away with that? I don't know how they do that, but on day one, if you buy from McCall's, we are going to stop the hidden charges as soon as you buy it. D.T. McCall & Sons has locations in Lebanon, Carthage, Lafayette, Cookeville, and Franklin, and they have been family-owned in Middle Tennessee for over 100 years. Head to one of their stores today or check them out at dtmccalls.com. You're going to love it. Believe me.
Impersonator not endorsed
this
by
summer,
Donald
never
Trump.
leave pets in vehicles while running errands. Even with windows cracked, 80 degrees can shoot up to 120 degrees, causing heat stroke, dehydration, and even death. So keep pets hydrated, shaded in cool areas, or just leave them at home. That's from Kathy, Candy, and the staff at Mutts Cuts Grooming, the people with warm hearts for those with cold noses. For your pet's grooming needs, call 931-645-9220. That's 931-645-9220 for Mutts Cuts Grooming in Clarksville, Tennessee at 1479 Tiny Town Road.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of The Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. In studio, the Attorney General for the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti. You know, we were talking during the break, this case, United States v. Skrmetti, we'll get the results from the Supreme Court. The decision will come down in June or July. But you used a term that I think is very appropriate. This case may be an inflection point in American legal history because you see, I don't know what, maybe it's Tennessee common sense. Tennessee common sense, the law as passed by the Tennessee General Assembly, said for minors, no puberty blockers, no hormone therapy, no surgery for somebody thinking about gender transition because it's irreversible. You might not know what happened. But, you know, we talk about how our legal system works, right? There are courts all over the place, and the courts make all sorts of decisions. But when the Supreme Court makes a decision, that becomes a huge precedent. In this particular circumstance, though, the spread of I don't know how many kids were transgender transitioners way back 30 years ago.
It was a tiny number. A friend of mine in high school actually ended up transitioning after he graduated, and it was unbelievably rare at that time. I mean, these days it's, probably they say 3 to 5 out of 100, or the numbers vary, but radical increase in the number of people who are seeking treatment for this, who are claiming the identity. In the UK, there was a study that showed a 4,000% increase in girls. So, there's been a big change, and it's happened very, very quickly.
Yeah, and my argument would be this isn't because of any underlying real medical condition. It's all psychological pressure from people that are have superior power to children. Now, there's a very interesting case just came out in California, of all places, in Los Angeles Superior Court. A 20-year-old woman named is Clementine Breen. She, 6 years ago, when she was 14, was, she says, rushed through a transition from female to male by a famous doctor, I think it's Johanna Olsen Kennedy, I think that's the right name, who leads a transgender clinic. And they kind of did the same thing with her parents. They said, well, you got to transition her or she might commit suicide. And now at the age of 20, she wants to transition back. And there's some elements of these puberty blockers and hormone therapy. And she had the surgery, the breast removal. She is now suing that doctor for negligence. Now, as an attorney, when you hear the word negligence, you say, uh-oh, lots of litigation there.
Yeah, I mean, you hear these stories, particularly from parts of the country that are more on the other side of the culture war, where kids are being rushed in, and you hear people go in for a half-hour consultation and get puberty blockers or hormone treatments. You hear about kids who are very blithely diagnosed, doctors fudging some of the factors that were part of the Dutch protocol that's supposed to lay out the rigorous framework for providing these potentially irreversible treatments. And, as the tide on this was rising, and as the sort of consensus was so vocal and unrebutted, I think it became easier and easier for people to get comfortable. And there was a lot of money to be made. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know that people were only in this for the money. I think a lot of the doctors felt like they were doing essentially holy work, right? That they were making the world a better place by giving as many kids as necessary access to these procedures. But as we've seen, the evidence just isn't there. And there is evidence that a lot of doctors knew that the evidence wasn't there. They'll say they were doing their best. But when you're talking about lifelong consequences and kids who are pressured, that is a challenging legal environment. And I think, if we win our case, that's a significant constitutional statement. But on the ground, in the clinics, in the hospitals, it's the litigation risk that's going to drive a lot of change.
Yeah, and that litigation risk would be, if this case in California, where Clementine Breen is suing the doctor that pushed her, she says, to transition and changed her for her entire life, and she's now decided she wants to transition back. That negligence claim, can you imagine a jury in Los Angeles looking at this case? It doesn't look very good for the transgender performing doctor. That could be a negligence claim won by Clementine Breen for millions of dollars.
Yeah, if you're talking about compromised fertility, loss of any sexual function, a jury could value that very, very highly. And if the doctors are cutting corners, and there's reason to think that a good number of them were, or if they knew that the guidelines were not soundly supported by evidence, or if there's any sort of hole in the foundation of what they were doing, they're in potentially a lot of financial trouble.
And I think it's funny because a well-known torts professor here in Nashville area is well known for saying, in tort law, the trend will start in California. And ironically, this appears to be the possibility of a trend kind of going in the common sense direction, which is stunning to me, starting in California, but it looks like it just might. I heard a lot of experts say that this particular case might be so difficult for the doctor involved that they may settle out of court before it gets to litigation.
Yeah, I mean, the insurance companies will be handling a lot of the decisions and trying to figure out how to essentially minimize the hit financially. But just the weight of having to deal with discovery obligations, the publicity, there's a lot of downside for doctors who are putting themselves in a dangerous spot here. You know, I think the less rigorous a doctor is, the more evangelical they were about these treatments, the more they talked about it.
If I could just, for our audience, when you say the word, the more evangelical they were about it, you're not talking about the more they were influenced by evangelical Christianity.
Correct.
You're talking
Correct.
about the more, shall we say, the more zealous they were in promoting it. But I think you're right. A lot of them kind of thought they were doing good work. Maybe.
But the more they talk publicly, the more there are statements there that plaintiffs' lawyers can use to make their case. And so I think the more prominent physicians are likely the most at risk here. And I do not think this is the last such lawsuit we'll see. Tennessee's law provides for suits like this.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see some in Tennessee as well. But it's ironic. It's the real irony that common sense appears to be started, of course, in Tennessee, but now seems to be reflected in the lower courts in California. It's kind of crazy. So now that you're back here after all of the frenetic activities in Washington, D.C., after the Tennessee common sense seems to be prevailing, are you going to take a little break, a little rest and relaxation for a while?
It's Christmas. It's a special time for the kids. So, we'll be slowing it down. I mean, there's still going to be work to do. There's always work to do, but it'll be a lot more balanced. And I'll have some days where I don't do anything but spend time with the family and celebrate Christmas.
Speaking of work to do, you did a little work with, you got an injunction against the Biden administration.
Yeah. So
you never sleep, I don't think.
Well, this was a good one. So Chris Kobach, the Kansas AG, who's a good friend, led this one. We worked with him on it, and it was seeking an injunction on expanding Obamacare availability to illegal immigrants. So
this is something the Biden administration wanted to do.
This is something the Biden administration wanted to do.
How did they come up with these ideas?
You know, I saw...
What's the stupidest thing we could do?
I saw a retrospective Twitter thread the other day that was just laying out all the immigration moves the Biden administration made. Because, with the campaign, there was a lot of talk about how, their administration hasn't done anything. It was Congress that wouldn't change the law. And it was just walking through move after move that the administration had made to try to make America more open and inviting and easy for illegal immigrants. And this was one of those moves. They were trying to make Obamacare available to illegal immigrants. Now, some of them had a sympathetic story, and it's, if you're a kid, I get it. There's sometimes a story to be told, but our laws are our laws, and even if you've got the most sympathetic person in the world, our laws still have to apply as written. And if you don't like it, you can change them, and that's the story of the Biden administration. They tried to do through regulation things that had to be done through legislation, and they came up with all these justifications, but you can never justify cutting those constitutional corners. So we stepped in, filed suit for an injunction, and prevailed. And the court issued the opinion, I think it was Tuesday. I was with Kobach. He was very excited to get that. And it's another good win. There's only so many more opportunities to get injunctions against the Biden administration.
You got 37 more days to go, right?
Yeah.
We'll see
what else comes along.
Every day they seem to be, trying to push through at the last moment whatever they can to implement an agenda that the American people rejected on November 5th.
Yeah, and there's risk for them. I mean, in student loans, there was, I think, a fourth attempt to come through and forgive a bunch of loans. There's a law called the Anti-Deficiency Act that says if you use federal money in a way that Congress hasn't authorized, that's a crime. And so the people working in the administration, the bureaucrats, need to be really, really careful about some of these last-minute moves, because there could be accountability for them there that I don't think they've been expecting. I suspect a lot of people are talking about this now, but for years, nobody ever thought there'd be any personal consequences for being part of this. But the law is the law, and people need to be very careful and ensure that they're not illegally treading on the prerogatives of another branch of government.
You mentioned Chris Kobach, the Attorney General in Kansas. Great guy. Good guy. There seems to be sort of this all-American team of legal superheroes that are attorneys general these days, right? You're laughing because you know where I'm going with this. You got Kobach, you got Maieres in Virginia,
Yep.
you got Bailey in Missouri, you got Paxson in Texas, and you guys are fearless.
There's a bunch. I mean, Marshall in Alabama, Byrd in Iowa.
Yeah.
I know I'm probably forgetting some. But yeah, actually, Marshall from Alabama, they did a great amicus brief in the Scarametti case.
Oh, yeah.
And he was sitting next to me when I got sworn into the Supreme Court bar up there. He came on up.
And isn't it fun? Isn't it great to have not just one guy in the wilderness, but a whole team of guys on the same idea?
You need it. I mean,
you need it.
The federal government has a lot of attorneys. If it was just us against them with no help, it'd be a
tough.
problem.
Well, more with Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Scarametti, after this. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy.
Tom Carmichael, CEO of Soul Tea, a supplement to help you have a healthier heart and stronger cardiovascular system. At Soul Tea, we regularly get emails from our customers telling us how Soul Tea has helped them. Like this one from Kelly. Hello, I'm 58 years old and have had high cholesterol for years. I wanted to stay away from prescription drugs. My husband and I have been using Soul Tea for about 13 months. My results have been amazing. My cholesterol levels went from 291 to 129. I am so impressed with Soul Tea and want to thank you. Now, in my own case, my bad cholesterol dropped from 130 to 89, and that was 20 years ago. I'm 75 years old and I take 0 prescription drugs. To get a great deal on Soul Tea, please go to GodzillaHeart.com, and when you check out, use the code Godzilla to get our best deal, which is 50% off your first shipment and then 3 bottles for the price of 2 thereafter. You don't have to live with a broken heart.
Do you suffer from
Try
declining
Soul Tea
bone and
today.
joint health? Hi, it's Tina with the John Fredericks Media Network. And when I heard about our company's Women's Challenge, I jumped on the opportunity to test this amazing supplement that's already restoring my bone density, soothing my joint pain, and helping me regain lost mobility. I've experienced so many benefits in such a short time with Native Path Collagen Peptides because they support my bones and joints, boost my metabolism, and unleash the most radiant skin and hair since my 20s. In just 2 weeks, my knee stiffness is gone, and I'm already hitting the gym more aggressively. And I get so many compliments on my glowy skin and shiny hair. Native Path Collagen Peptides are so easy to take. They're tasteless, odorless, and mix great with my morning coffee. Read thousands of 5-star reviews at getnativepath.com/Godzilla. Level up your self-care with Native Path Collagen Peptides. Try it risk-free for as low as $21 today and get free shipping at getnativepath.com/Godzilla.
In 2008, the amount of concentrated time people could spend on a task without becoming distracted was 12 seconds. 5 years later, it was only 8 seconds, 1 second less than a goldfish. If you're often distracted or have trouble recalling information, you're likely to fall behind in the demanding, fast-paced 21st century. In other words, brain performance is more critical now than ever. Boost your brain power with Healthy Cells Focus Plus Recall. Science-backed nootropics to help you sharpen focus, concentrate longer, enhance recall, improve mental speed, learn rapidly, and be more alert. It's a pill-free brain supplement made with maximum absorption ingestible gel technology, designed to feed your brain at the cellular level. Take it for a test drive. Go to healthycell.com and use code GODZILLA for 20% off your first order of Focus Plus Recall. That's healthycell.com, code GODZILLA for 20% off.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. In studio, Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, Jonathan Skrmetti. General Skrmetti, how do you build such a great team? I mean, this is, think about even the case US v. Skrmetti. You knew months ago how are you going to play it. You knew you were going to pick Matthew Rice. You knew he was a superstar. He turned out to be even a bigger superstar than you thought, but he knocked it out of the park. How do you, when you've got all of the representation of the state of Tennessee that you have going on, how do you go about building such a good team?
So there's a few pieces to it. I mean, the first one is you need to give people the opportunity to be excellent, which means not a lot of meddling. We try to stay on top of comms, but in a lot of the elected AG offices, for reasons that are totally sensible, every move they make is driven by how it's going to play out. And we're able to be a lot more legally oriented because I don't have the same election cycle.
So let's just tell our listeners, so there are 50 states in the union. In 44 states, the Attorney General is elected. And in those 44 states, it's often seen as a stepping stone to the next electoral office, governor. There are 5 states where basically the state legislature, in some form or another, picks the Attorney General. There's only one state in the United States of America where it's the Supreme Court that selects the Attorney General. By tradition, now we've got a process where the governor makes, some recommendations and they pick from those recommendations. The irony is I have been a huge critic of that process because I thought it was a violation of the separation of powers. And yet, that process, because the governor did the right thing and the Supreme Court did the right thing, resulted in Tennessee having the best Attorney General in its history right now, sitting next to me. Isn't that something? How things turn out?
You're very kind. We'll see how I do. But no, I mean, when you can bring in lawyers and say, pick this obscure, weird argument and run with it. We did that with the war on appliances stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where, we were putting out these letters and people were saying, why do you care? This is so dumb. It's such a waste of time. But it goes to a fundamental limitation on the executive power under the U.S. Constitution, and we wanted to fight that fight. So giving people the runway to be good lawyers in pursuit of the cause they want, knowing that you'll let them be aggressive. I mean, I'm a pretty aggressive guy. I came up as a prosecutor. I do not want to handle things passively. If there's a problem, we're going to confront it one way or another. Once you do a few things, people start to see, and it gets easier to recruit. Part of it is pay. Our General Assembly has been generous. It's nothing compared to private practice.
Private practice, a top-level attorney can make, $500,000 a year? Or more?
Well, substantially more than that. I mean, if I were to pivot out right now, I don't think it's crazy to think I could get 10 times plus what I'm making at the moment.
And then the other attorneys there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Matt Rice, Whitney Hermendorfer, she clerked for Justice Kavanaugh when he was on the D.C. Circuit, and then for Justice Alito, and then for Justice Barrett. So she has a third of the Supreme Court on her resume. And she and Matt are a killer team. And then we got some outside help in this too. We had Adam Mortara, who moved down here years ago, settled in Franklin, who's another former Thomas clerk. Cam Norris in Knoxville, who helped
I know Cam. Yeah, he's great.
Helped us beat the NCAA in the case a little while back. And then Jeff Harris, who works with Cam, who's actually an old friend of mine from law school. So they were on the brief. Stephen Griffin, this brilliant guy, came up from Mississippi because he wanted to work on exactly the kind of cases that we're doing. And he's a great trial lawyer. He was the point of the spear in the trial court on this case, and he was at our table in the Supreme Court. So you give people reason to believe that they'll be able to come in and use their skills, their abilities at the highest possible level to make a change. And we've been able to recruit a lot of good folks. We pay better, I think, than many other offices. And Nashville's a more attractive destination.
It's a great place.
Than, a lot of the state capitals. I mean, I lived in Des Moines for a year when I was clerking. It's a great city, but it's a lot harder to get someone to move there.
Let me just say, Des Moines is a very great city, but it's not Nashville.
Yeah.
And, there are other places, Lansing, Michigan, that are state capitals, Jackson, Mississippi, that aren't quite as nice as Nashville, right?
Yeah. So we've got a lot going for us. And then, part of it is getting a team that's all about recruiting. I mean, Matt is a great recruiter. Whitney's a great recruiter. We're constantly looking for new pipelines of talent. So I've got people who are clerking now or who are about to start clerking who I already have in mind for bringing into the Solicitor General's office in like 4 or 5 years to help. I suspect I won't have Matt forever, and so I'm hopefully for a good long time.
But still, I mean,
he's got great opportunities.
He's going to have great opportunities. Yeah. Now, this is all about money, though. I mean, as you're talking about this, it would seem to me that even though you pay, this is just me talking, even though you pay them better than other attorney generals at the state level, because the talent can get so much more money in the private sector, I think it wouldn't hurt to have the ability to pay superstars a lot more in the legal environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's, they're every day asking themselves, is it worth it? Knowing what's out there. And the strength of our office is we have a bunch of people who decided that it was. And not just the people who are there to litigate for causes, but like all sorts of good lawyers that are doing important work for the state. But at that level, like a little bit of a bump goes a long way.
A long way. Now,
yeah.
Your budget is set by the Tennessee General Assembly. And I think you're on track to get a little bit more this year. But you can always use a little bit more, right? I think. I mean, if you look at the impact, let's just look at the impact that your office has had on the reputation of the state of Tennessee and on the daily lived experience, shall we say, of Tennesseans. It's been a lot.
We enjoyed Title IX. We enjoyed the Title IX rules. We enjoyed the Title VII guidance. I mean, all sorts of things that would have been transformative if they'd gone into effect. And I pitch it to other states as well. It doesn't take much to make a big difference.
Very good. Well, Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, thanks so much for coming in. It's a great treat to have you in studio for a full hour.
Yeah, thanks
come
for
back
having me.
again. You're always welcome here.
Absolutely.
All right. Up next, Rob Carson. I'll be back on Monday, 9 o'clock. I hope you have a great day. Go to TennesseeStar.com, TennesseeStar.com for all our stories. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. Thanks for joining us today. This is Michael Patrick Leahy. I want to say a word about my good friend Dustin Damon. Dustin is the best handyman in Middle Tennessee. Call Dustin today at 724-683-4400. That's 724-683-4400 if you have a job around the house that you just haven't gotten around to. If you're busy like me, you just may not have the time to fix that broken mailbox, repair the back porch, or get that old light fixture back to working properly. Do what I did. Call Dustin Damon today at 724-683-4400, and he will bring his truck and tools to your house and get that job done lickety-split. Dustin's main service area is Williamson County and the southern part of Davidson County. So call Dustin Damon, the best handyman in Middle Tennessee today, at 724-683-4400. Tell him you heard about him on the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. The Chief Team reminds listeners here that more and more veterans will be returning home over the next few years, and many are local. These heroes have elite military training and valuable professional skills, but they also need jobs too. That's why the Chief Team is encouraging all local businesses. Let's make it the year we hire smart and hire veterans. That's from the Chief Team, where they say service isn't just a courtesy, it's a commitment. For more information, call 931-444-3572. That's 931-444-3572 for the Chief Team in Clarksville.
The Black preaching tradition is deeply connected to gospel music.
PBS presents a new series hosted by Henry Louis Gates Jr., Gospel.
Our singers preach and our preachers sing.
Gospel is a prayer. It is our heart's cry to God in lyrics and song.
You feel it deep down in your soul.
Gospel. Streaming now on the PBS app.